Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So welcome to the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke and our open conversations about postdoctoral and junior faculty diversity awards. So I'll just put that out there. That'll be the focus of today's webinar. So in case this may not apply to you, you can gracefully leave now, but hopefully everyone here knows the focus of what we're going to discuss today. I also want to just, we've said open a few times in terms of open conversations. And what that really stands for is the Office of Programs to Enhance Neuroscience Workforce Diversity, where I'm really lucky to work with an amazing group of people. Today, I'll highlight in the office that Dr. Marguerite Matthews will present the postdoc opportunities and Dr. Lauren Ulrich will present the faculty. But our office, we want you to feel as though you can reach out to us, you can come to us to ask questions about the mechanisms. The way that NINDS works is that there are a couple of offices that are sort of the front line when it comes to training opportunities. For the diversity-focused opportunities, it's the open office, but we also have our wonderful colleagues in the training office. So really see us as your sort of front entry into learning about mechanisms and opportunities. Our goal is really to open the doors when it comes to access and opportunities for all trainees. So before we dive into the specific mechanisms, and remember today, we're really going to give you an overview of the postdoc and junior faculty, or what we call early stage investigator opportunities, and also resources. And it'll be a way for you to really start to think about strategically designing your sort of plan for yourself and your career advancement. We won't, spend too much time on any particular mechanism, but really create for you a sense of awareness where your opportunities are. But before I even do sort of those broader brushstrokes of putting things on your dashboard, I think it's good to just talk about just some general advice. And this general advice really applies to any funding opportunity, which we call FOAs, or any mechanisms, which are the Ks or the Fs that you can think about applying for. The really important thing to note is that there are research grants, there are training grants, and then there are also career development awards. You'll see on any of the NIH websites, but specifically the NINDS, we try to do a nice job of sort of defining not only by career stage what could be available for you, but then also whether they're individual or actually institutional awards. One of the things to really note about the FOAs are these funding opportunity announcements is to really read them carefully. That is really, I think, your first stop. If you hear about a mechanism that you think might be relevant to you, is to, either maybe they've already mentioned the FOA number, or you can even Google it if you can't find it readily on our website, is to really go through that FOA, read about the purpose. Make sure you spend time looking at these guide notices. So what happens is sometimes when we publish the FOAs, maybe there are changes in policy, or maybe there are just things we feel like it wasn't clear enough when we issued it, and we go and we issue a notice to add that clarity. All of that will be at the top of the FOA. Pay attention to that. Also pay attention to the eligibility criteria. The worst thing is to invest a lot of time applying for something that when it reaches the NIH, it's decided, what, either you've timed out for this, or maybe there's a specificity in there that you're just not eligible for. The other thing is that it's no secret how your application will be judged. It's really powerful to pay attention to the review criteria in the FOA. Often people, when they're applying for Ks or for Fs, they spend a lot of time reading the instructions. Super important. But then go back to the FOA itself and compare what you've written to those review criteria. Like I said, it should be no surprises how you're going to be judged. And so you want to make sure the way that you've written the application, you've captured all of that. And it's also very, very important to really follow all the instructions. You don't want to lose out on something because of a technicality. That's really heartbreaking when we see that happen. And it could be just missing one form. For example, with a lot of the, especially mainly all of the diversity enhancing mechanisms, there will be a letter in there to talk about your relationship to the goals of the program. And so if that's missing, we won't be able to consider it under the program. And so that's just a small piece that has nothing to do with your science, nothing to do with your accomplishments, that could make the application get kicked out from review. Don't let that happen to you. The other thing, a bullet that I want to mention, is the program officers. This is really what we are paid to do. We are paid to help you. We often say we are people, right? So we'll hear examples, well, you told us to reach out to the program officer, but my program officer never responds to me. Make sure that you're being persistent. One email sometimes can get lost. We have a lot of volume, and just like everyone else, especially during COVID, things can get lost in the shuffle. Reach out again. But if you don't hear from your program officer, as I've said in the beginning, we are your connection. Come back and reach out to any one of us in the open office, and we'll do our best to try to get you a resolution. But you really want to reach out early, when you can have the most benefit of a conversation. Reaching out even 2 weeks before a deadline when something is due is not all that helpful. It can take up to a week to really get a mutual time that both parties can meet. So make sure you're reaching out early and doing your due diligence in terms of the timeline when you're planning this. But then also give people something to react to. Sending just a broad base, I'd like to talk to you about an application I'm thinking about, isn't as helpful. Give information in that email where you say the mechanism that you're interested in, and then also include your bio sketch and your specific aims, so that we can have the information to really kind of readily go back and forth with you. And then, that sort of documentation is helpful for us in terms of determining if you truly are eligible for the mechanism that you want to apply to, and also giving us that specific aims. There are programs that go across all of the NIH institutes and centers. There are some programs that are for all neuroscience institutes. And then there are some programs that are just for one specific institute. So giving us those specific aims also helps us to determine where your application will have the best fit, right? Because you want the institute that you're applying to be appropriate for the research and to also be excited by your research. And so everything I've talked about is before you submit. The other thing is after you submit, after you go through review, please reach out to us after you get your summary statement. We hope and we wish that everyone could get their grant or their grant funded on the first submission. But the reality is that the probability is that people have to resubmit. And so you want to come back and touch base with your program officer after you've gotten that summary statement. And then the last bullet is to really go for it. Don't talk yourself out of some of these awards, especially, what we hear for the K99 R00 or even the D-SPAN is, I don't know how competitive I'll be. I don't have a first author paper in science or nature or all these other things. And the reality is that we funded people without all of those things. It's about the holistic package and about you selling the positives that you do have. And so making sure that you don't just say no to yourself, but you have these informed conversations with us, but then also your mentor. The thing that we always say, if you don't apply, that's the only guarantee that you will not get funded. So in closing on this slide, know what to apply for, know when to apply, and know what resources are available to you. And we'll talk a lot more about the resources at the end of this talk. This slide is just really giving you a broad overview of what we have available at the NINDS. And as you can see, it goes from starting from high school all the way to new faculty. So there are a lot of opportunities for you to take advantage of. And as I said, today we're going to go over those broadly. Next slide. And then this will be my final portion of the talk in terms of a slide highlighting the research supplements. The research supplements it's an administrative award to a parent grant, and that could be an R01, a U, or a P that maybe your mentor has, or a collaborator, someone at the university. So as a postdoc or a faculty person, especially, say you're a postdoc starting in the lab and you're new, and maybe you feel like, I just don't have enough pilot data, which I guess we could talk about the F32, but just say maybe you've already timed out for the F32. It could be a bridge to the K99 or to a K award. And also for faculty, you could use this diversity supplement program to also, as long as you're in less than your second year at the institution, you could use this as well to maybe buy out teaching time. Say you're at a heavily teaching intensive university and you really don't have, you're not able to focus on the research, you could use that buyout from the diversity supplement to give you that time. And so this slide is showing not only that we have a parent FOA for the diversity supplement, but especially in research areas that we have congressionally mandated funds, like the Alzheimer's disease and Alzheimer's disease related dementias, HEAL, the BRAIN initiative. And even if you're thinking about doing something in the small business space, there's an administrative supplement to give you that mentoring and that training. Also reentry, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So let's go to the next slide. Now I'm going to introduce my colleague that I already mentioned, Dr. Marguerite Matthews, and she's going to talk a little bit about the postdoc fellows programs. Take it away, Marguerite.
Thank you. So I think it's important to first note, before we get even into all these different opportunities that are available, that the opportunities we're talking about today are very specific. So many of you here may already be funded by NINDS or are working with a mentor who is funded by NINDS, but your research may change, or there might be something about your research topic that doesn't directly fall into the NINDS mission. It's important to remember that everything I'm talking about, or every mechanism that we discuss today, will be specific to what NINDS supports. It may not be the only thing that NINDS support, or the only mechanism that is supported by NINDS, but these things can change. Activity codes are also used differently across institutes. So just keep that in mind. And again, when in doubt, check the funding announcement. As Dr. Jones-London said, the top usually has all the most pertinent information, but also talk to a program officer to make sure that you are looking at the right thing, both for you as the investigator and also for the research topic that you're involved in. So the first mechanism that I want to talk about is the F32 in NRSA. Many of you have heard about the F32, and I'm going to tell you right now, probably everything you've heard about the F32 does not apply to the NINDS F32. We have specifically designed this mechanism to support training at the very, very beginning of your postdoctoral training. So you can apply for this, for the NINDS F32 as early as 12 months before you even start in your postdoc, up to 12 months after starting it. So preliminary data is discouraged. It's not required. We don't want it. It's probably actually bad if you've already started on this project. This is really for you, if you're a senior graduate student, to start thinking about what it is that you want to do for your postdoc, getting together with your potential mentor and start thinking about that project and planning it out. So this really is an opportunity for you and your mentor to sit down and think, what are the skills that you're going to need to be able to carry out this particular research proposal? So you may have timed out of this particular thing. If you're a postdoc already, that's okay. This does have a very specific target in mind, but it functions very similarly to all other NRSA mechanisms. If you have been trained on a T32, or if you've been trained on a pre-doctoral F31, this mechanism provides up to 3 years aggregate support at the postdoctoral level. So if you come into your postdoc, say on a T32 appointment, just to kind of get you going, and you're going to apply for this F32 in those first few months of your appointment, you would only be able to have whatever the remaining time is out of that 3 years. So just keep that in mind. This F32 is also only open to US citizens and permanent residents. So the NINDS also has a postdoctoral K01. Many K01s used across the NIH are for postdocs, but that is not always the case. Again, don't necessarily assign a specific career stage to an activity code, and the activity code would be K01 in this instance. So at the NINDS, we have a general postdoctoral K01 that is open to everyone. It's not just, it is not a diversity targeted program, and it is for individuals who want to devote a significant period of time to developing a research project. So a K, anything with a K is typically a career development award. And this is a mentored career development award. So you would need to have be working with a mentor in order to put this project together. So you can apply during 2 through 4 years of cumulative postdoctoral research. So this is something that you want to have already established a project in. You're starting to collect preliminary data. This is not for you when you very first start, but even at year 0 of your postdoc, you want to start thinking about this, applying for this award if this is something that you're interested in pursuing. It's never too early to start thinking about these awards, even if you can't apply for it immediately. It is only open to US citizens and permanent residents, and it supports 6 years cumulative postdoctoral research experience. And again, this is a career development award. It is not an NRSA. So there are some different stipulations with that. And again, all of that information will be in the funding announcement. So now we're going to talk about transition awards. Many of you have probably heard of sort of the pivotal K99, but we are going to talk about very different flavors of that K99. We used to have a K22, maybe some of you know about that, but that's sort of been phased out. But there can be different types of transition awards. So again, maybe one of these are not the best fitting for you. There may be some other institutes that support your research, but also your particular career stage. It may be a K99, it could be a K22. So just keep that in mind. These are for research environments that can be, the current research environment is often perceived as very challenging. So that's why this helps transition you from your postdoctoral research phase. Generally, this is when you have a few years in and into more getting you ready to be an independent research investigator. Next slide, please. So the first transition award I'm going to talk about is the K99 R00 Parent Award. And again, we use this term, you'll see it on the funding announcement itself. But this particular award that I'm talking about is supported by most institutes, if not all. And so you'll see the list of institutes on the funding announcement at the very top. And this is to support a mentored research experience during the K99 phase, which is a competitive award. So you will apply, it will get peer reviewed. And then it is followed by, once the K99 is completed, it's followed by the R00 phase. So that's when you're transitioning into a faculty appointment. And that portion of the grant is typically reviewed administratively. So for the parent K99, you cannot be more than 4 years, you cannot have more than 4 years of postdoctoral research experience. And typically what that means, and this can change depending on the funding announcement, again, it's important to read this. This means really from your time of completing your terminal degree to the time of applying. So 4 years from the completion of your doctoral degree. Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you, Lauren. Non-research time doesn't count. So this parent K99 is open to non-citizens. There is no citizenship requirement. You have 1 to 2 years of research support in the K99 phase. So again, this is as you're finishing your research time, and then up to 3 years for the R00 phase as a faculty in your faculty position. And you will see the costs of what's available in terms of monies for each of those phases. And again, all of this information can be found in the funding announcement. So the Mosaic K99 is sort of the brainchild of NIGMS, and this is a diversity targeted K99 R00. And there are some differences between this K99 and the parent. Very similarly structured. You have a competitive K99 phase, and then the sort of R00 phase that's more administratively reviewed, and you will get a chance to work with your program officer on the specifics of, preparing to make that transition to faculty. You'll talk about getting startup packages, all of that stuff. It's a great opportunity for career development, but something that will probably take a lot of finessing as you're moving on. But one of the really incredible things about the Mosaic K99 is not only are you getting money to support yourself as an investigator and your research, but you're also now being funneled into an opportunity to participate in cohorts that are these cohorts for professional development or managed by professional societies. And currently we have 3 professional societies that have a UE5 that sort of handle all of the professional development aspects. And there may be more in the future, but that's sort of TBD. But it is important to note that this particular mechanism is for US citizens. So this does have a citizenship eligibility requirement, and not every NIH institute supports this particular mechanism. I think most of them do, but there are still a few that aren't on there. So you'll have the list at the bottom of this slide, but it's also in the funding announcement, which institutes do support this, and NINDS is one of them. Yes, so as Dr. Jones-London mentioned previously, because this is a diversity targeted application, it has a few additional documents that will need to be included in the application that are more than just the research plan, the institutional environment, et cetera. You will be required to submit a diversity statement, and this must include a statement from you, the candidate, outlining your commitment to diversity in the biomedical sciences, any past or present leadership, mentoring and outreach activities that you've been involved in that enhance diversity. And you will have to describe planned activities during the course of the K99 and R00 phase. So additionally, you will, which is very common to almost all diversity programs now, is a description of candidates' contribution to program goals that Dr. Jones-London mentioned previously. And you have to have these or your application will not be considered for review. So unlike the parent K99 and the Mosaic K99, which require you to be within 4 years of having your research time, the BRAIN K99, which is funded through the BRAIN Initiative, allows you to have up to 5 years of experience, because we recognize, particularly with the BRAIN Initiative, that this can be very hard-hitting research areas. And so giving you sort of a little bit of more cushion time to be able to be eligible for this mechanism. But don't wait until you're 4. Don't think that you're off the hook. This just gives you just a little more wiggle room. So again, this is for someone who's later in their postdoc, ready to start transitioning into that faculty phase. You do have to be doing brain relevant research, and you can find out what that means and what that is in the funding announcement. But if you're currently a graduate student and this is something that is of interest to you, it's really important that you start thinking about that now and setting up a postdoc that will allow you to do research that would be considered brain relevant. This also is a mechanism for US citizens and permanent residents. And this criteria is opened a little bit more. So for the Mosaic, I believe it is just underrepresented racial and ethnic minorities, individuals with disabilities, and folks from disadvantaged backgrounds. But the BRAIN initiative, given sort of the very male-dominated nature of this particular award, it is also open to women. Women are seen as underrepresented in these areas. So as similar to some of our diversity supplement programming, we also have NINDS has an AD, ADRD, Alzheimer's disease, and Alzheimer's disease related dementias, say that 5 times fast, K99. So this is for folks that are working on Alzheimer's disease or related dementias, and very similar criteria to the parent grant. But again, think about what is necessary. All of this information is in the funding announcement. You have to be within 4 years of your postdoctoral research. Is only open to US citizens and permanent residents. Again, it allows for 1 to 2 years of the K99 phase and 3 years of support in the R00 phase. And the costs are very similar to the previously stated mechanisms. All right, and so now I will turn the mic over to Dr. Ulrich.
Hello, everyone. How are you all doing today? So for the faculty K awards, the first one that I'm going to talk about is our faculty K01. So if you remember, about 20 minutes ago, we told you we also have a postdoc K01. So not to try to be confusing, but this one is specifically for faculty that are in a tenure track position by time of award, and you have to be in the first 3 years of your faculty position. Let's say you have an offer for a faculty position, you are allowed to apply before you actually start that position, but we cannot actually issue the award until you have that position. And this is also a diversity enhancing award. So for eligibility, you have to be from an underrepresented background and then also a US citizen or permanent resident. And this award provides up to 5 years of support. And the last 2 years of that is contingent upon sufficient progress. And what we mean by this is literally just putting in an application for an R01 or an R21 or an equivalent non-NIH grant. Mostly we want to make sure that your early stage investigator status doesn't expire and that you actually have time and funding to put together a resubmission if you need to. And this award provides $95,000 salary, $100,000 research costs, and plus fringe and indirects. And I think, people ask us this question, well, this is a mentored award, but I'm a faculty member. So, what does the mentorship actually look like in this case? And we really think about this in terms of more of a sponsor. So the mentoring really needs to be appropriate for a faculty member, and it's someone who's going to help you navigate institutional expectations, broaden your scientific network, and really help you start up your lab and apply for that R01 and be successful. And so we need to have a commitment from the mentor and any co-mentors that clearly describes how they're going to coordinate mentoring of you with each other, and then also what they're going to do to help you advance your career. And we also get a lot of questions about whether or not the mentors have to be at the same institution as you. And I think it's really great to expand your network and get people from outside of your institution involved in your research or your career development, but at least one of your mentors should be at your institution, because they're the ones who are going to know, what does it take at your institution to get tenure? What are the expectations? What are the resources that are available to support you at that institution? And that they're going to be, in the rooms behind closed doors advocating for you, and that's very important. So the other flavors of Ks for faculty that we have are for clinicians. So we have a K08 and a K23 that is for clinician scientists to really develop their independent research. And one of them is for those pursuing basic or translational research, and one of them is for more patient-oriented research, but ultimately they're very similar awards. And so for this, you have to be a clinical doctoral degree holder within 5 years of completing your clinical training. Again, a US citizen or permanent resident. And this award supports up to 5 years of protected research time, and you do have to be able to devote 75% protected time, 50% for neurosurgeons, to the research and career development. So this, if you get this award, it can be a great way to sort of carve out that protected time, as we were talking about earlier. And this award provides a $100,000 salary and $51,000 in research. And so sometimes we get a question from clinicians like, should I apply for the faculty K01 or should I apply for the, the K08 or K23? And I think it really depends on your situation and what what the expectations are of your university and also like your research experience. So the K08s and K23s are reviewed mostly by clinician scientists that understand the kinds of opportunities that you might have had to do research or not do research during your training, whereas the K01 is going to be much more of a mix of backgrounds that are reviewing that. So if you have questions, we're happy to talk to you, or the office run by Stephen Korn at NINDS, the training office, they're the main point of contact for these two awards, and they would also be happy to talk you through it. We also have a K02 award, which is also for clinician scientists that are maybe a little bit later in their career, and they need that additional protected time in order to secure the R01. So again, a clinical doctoral degree holder that holds a primary appointment in a clinical department, and again, US citizen or permanent resident. And this will provide $105,000 in salary, $50,000 research costs, and it provides those for the first 3 years, and then it's salary support for years 4 and 5. And once you've gotten that R01 or equivalent, you can put up to 80% of your salary on this K02. And again, the contact for this one is the training office at NINDS, but we're happy to facilitate introductions if you have questions. And so the first program is not actually a program that you are likely to be applying for, but it is something that should be on your radar. So the Common Fund, which is a set of funds that is directed by the NIH director, Francis Collins, has established this program called the Faculty Institutional Recruitment for Sustainable Transformation, or the FIRST program. And it is, substantial amount of money to different institutions to do cohort hiring, specifically around diversity and inclusive excellence in biomedical research writ large. So the first set of FIRST awards were announced this past year, so you can find those. And there's going to be additional awards over the next years, and these programs are going to be hiring. So if you're a postdoc fellow or a junior faculty looking to, get a position in a really supportive environment, this is a great opportunity and something to be looking out for, because not only are they faculty positions where you're going to be with others who are in your similar position, but you'll also have access to a career development, like similar to Mosaic, career development core, and also the institutions themselves are supposed to be taking actions to make their environments more inclusive. Another policy that I alluded to earlier that you should definitely be aware of is the early stage investigator status. So this is anyone who has not yet gotten an R01 or equivalent grant, who's within 10 years of completing their terminal research degree or 10 years of completing residency. And as an R00, if you do get the K99 R00, that R00 does retain your ESA status. The reason that this is important is because you will get, if you have ESI status, you'll get special attention at review, during counsel, and then we have a better pay line for R01s that are scored from ESIs. And for us, that's 10 points beyond the pay line. So if our pay line is, 15th percentile, then we'll fund ESIs through 25th percentile. So you can imagine that's like a really good bonus, and you want to be able to keep that and be submitting your grants while you're still eligible for this status. So you should definitely go into ERA Commons and double check whether that date when your ESI status expires is correct or not. If it's not, you can go in and request that it be changed. And also you can request extensions. It's a 1-year extension for childbirth. Other reasons can include medical concerns, disability, family care responsibilities, natural disasters, military service. There's a long list of reasons why you might ask for an ESI extension, and you can just go in and submit your request, and then it'll be reviewed by NIH, and they'll adjust accordingly. I think this is the last thing that I'm going to touch on, which is the Early Career Reviewer Program. We know that, sitting in review, there's really no substitute for understanding like how review works, what goes on in the mind of a reviewer, what are the kinds of things that reviewers talk about or emphasize or like or dislike. And so the NIH Center for Scientific Review, which reviews, most of the research grants, especially the R01s, has this early career reviewer program to give you an on-ramp into becoming a reviewer. So you have a slightly lower load, they do a little bit of training, they match you with an appropriate study section, and sort of help you get into reviewing and sort of hopefully help your grant writing by going through this experience. So you have to have a year of experience as faculty, at least one senior authored research publication, and you've submitted a grant in PI/PD role to the NIH, and you haven't yet had your R01 or equivalent. And then the other thing to note is that, there is some reviews that happen at the different institutes. So NINDS, we have our own scientific review branch, and sometimes those SROs are also looking for reviewers and open to having sort of early career reviewers on their study sections as well. So you can also reach out to an SRO if there's a particular study section run by an institute that seems like you'd be a good fit for the kind of expertise that they're looking for. You can always reach out to the SRO and ask them if they need any help to keep you in mind. Okay, now I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Jones-London.
So thank you, Lauren. So now I'm going to highlight a few resources that we often view as maybe hidden gems that maybe not everyone knows about, but sure could be useful as you're thinking about gathering information and your application together. One of the things that I'll put on your dashboard is the NIH Reporter. This is an amazing federal resource where everything that is funded by not only the NIH, but some other federal agencies that have granting authority, there's a database, and you can search that database. You can look by scientific research area, you can look by state, you can look, there's a bunch of freely available information. The ways that you can use this information is that you can actually look and get to know projects that are ongoing in your research area. Certainly with the loss of in-person meetings, it may feel like you're a little bit out of touch with is going on nationally or maybe even internationally. This is a good way to see the research that's going on in your research area. And that's important because as you sell your project, you want to emphasize what's significant, what's innovative, what are you doing that everyone else isn't doing. It's also a good way to get to know potential collaborators. And you can think about the positives, and not that competition is negative, but the other side of that as well. Who else is doing what you're doing? Is it a very crowded field? How do you distinguish your work? But then also the other side is, who can I work with? Are there avenues of synergy that I can find? All of that information is freely available. It also can tell you what NIH study section is going to review your application. And remember, by the mere fact that this information is, these are awards, research applications that have been funded, this gives you a sense of what study sections typically review positively different types of research. It's important to note that for most of the NINDS training mechanisms, really just except for the F31s, we review them in that in-house scientific review branch that Lauren just mentioned. And so for that, we're not really requesting a study section, but for some other mechanisms, you will be, especially once you get into the space of talking about R01s. They just go to CSR. And so you'll want to be aware of the different study sections. The other thing is, say I mentioned really early on in this talk about diversity supplements and that they're attached to a mentor or a parent grant that is already funded. Say you're looking for that opportunity to request a diversity supplement, you could make a match with someone or reach out to see, once again, if there's this ability to form a collaboration. Next slide. The next point that I'll mention, I mentioned this, the reentry program on the supplement slide, but it's important to note that we've had a few updates. It's now a NOCI, and this is the notice number, and it's not only reentry, but reintegration. Let's start with the reentry first. The reentry part of it is really to bring someone in that maybe took time off or on hiatus. It could be, due to having a child, maybe taking care of a sick loved one, even in terms of we've had people who've done military service. And so you want to get back into the game in terms of research, but feeling like you once again need a little bit of a bridge time to come up to speed. The reentry supplement could perhaps be for you. And so you have to have left for a minimum of 1 year and really be re-entering back in with this supportive mentor to once again get you up to speed to then help you to get onto the pathway of just the regular general training or funding opportunities. The other important piece of this is this new language for the reintegration program. And this really addresses something that is really super important in terms of this need to bring back people that haven't necessarily left, but are in environments that are just not supportive. So either unsafe, discriminatory environments, unlawful harassment, all of these things that a trainee, a postdoc, or even maybe as a junior or faculty that you experience, and you feel like you want to leave this lab environment, but you still want to continue your research. And how do you do that? Maybe the person in that lab down the hall is willing to take you on, but because this is coming out of the blue and not planned for, they don't necessarily have the money on their grant to support you. If they have an existing NIH grant, they can request this reintegration supplement. And so this would help you to rapidly transition into a new, safer and more supportive research environment. All of the information is going to be on our website, and you shouldn't be concerned that you have to divulge a whole bunch of information about the particulars of that, but we really want people to feel that if their passion is to pursue research, that we're creating programs to help retain people. Next slide. On that same sort of topic, we also now have administrative supplements to promote research continuity and retention of, we have highlighted here K awardees, but we also have a similar mechanism for R awardees. And the problem that this program is trying to address is to, once again, minimize departures from biomedical research. This program is for someone, say you get one of the K99s or the K01 or any of these K mechanisms, and something happens. we all know, right? We can all agree, having gone through a pandemic, life sometimes kind of happens without you planning for it. And if that happens, this is a way to make sure that you can stay in the game of research. And even if it's something that's not only, it doesn't always have to be something, pejorative, it could be something very happy in terms of taking time off to actually, due to childbirth or adoption or any of these things. The goal is to provide support for you to bring in either a technician or maybe even some type of equipment or resource, so that while you've taken this, what we call a critical life event hiatus, you can continue the research in the lab. And so it's $50K direct costs. Like I said, it could be to bring in a technician or another pair of hands to work on your project while you are on this leave. Next slide. And then this is a really helpful resource, because we know grants are wonderful, money is nice, but it's a full package of what you need to really, feel whole and survive. And mentorship is a really big part of that. Some are very fortunate to have a high level of mentorship, either in their individual labs or maybe even at their institutions. But also, people should know that we have these national mentoring hubs to either add to that level of mentorship, or maybe in some cases, unfortunately, to really provide that level of mentorship. And so a couple of the programs, and we're not highlighting all of the R25s we fund, that's going to be at the bottom of the slide. We have some amazing R25 programs that are doing some really needed work in terms of making sure the pathway of diverse investigators all the way from undergraduate to junior faculty is there. But I'm highlighting some of these long-standing institutional R25 awards that we have, and specifically ones that focus on creating a community and a supportive network for postdocs and faculty. So it's Society for Neuroscience. We also have a program at the American Academy of Neurology, if your research is more clinically focused. We also have the BRAINS program that focuses more on, advanced postdocs and junior faculty, a really active network. The MINDS program, the UAB Roadmap Scholars, that's more graduate and postdocs. And then also the COMRADE, which has a particular focus on behavioral neuroscience and health equity or health disparities. So these are just some things, once again, to keep on your radar. You wouldn't apply, to us, you would apply to these programs. They have annual calls for applications. Next slide. The other program that I'll highlight, and we just saw something recently, I think it was in Science, about, especially for diverse researchers, the difference or the disparities when it comes to debt and loans. And, sometimes, once again, people leaving the path because of other decisions, right? Because of financial decisions. And one of the really shining stars of a program that we have at the NIH is the Loan Repayment Program. And this is really designed to recruit and retain highly qualified health professionals in biomedical and behavioral research careers. But this is not only for MDs, we've had some success with PhDs as well. And so you see the eligibility on the slide. You have to be a citizen or permanent resident, have one of these degrees, have a 20% debt to income ratio, and then really have this qualified research at least 20 hours per week. And this is not a grant application. It's a very different process. And hopefully we'll talk more about this in our Q&A, because Dr. Marguerite Matthews, before she came to work with Open, she actually worked on the LRP. But I just really, really, really want you to be aware of this program that can pay off some of your loan debt. This is something that if you have eligibility, you definitely want to take advantage of. Next slide. Another program that I'll highlight, and I spoke a little bit about, I know we talked about the path a few times. Everyone's path is not the same. There could be some of you listening on this call today that really see a more of a connect for yourselves in maybe industry or even more translational research or research that has to do with small business opportunities. And so knowing that that could be a very different space for you going from academia to that, there is an NIH Applicant Assistant program. We have a very active SBIR, STTR office that is always looking to engage more diverse investigators. And they've asked us to really highlight this resource in this slide. And you know, I won't go into a lot of details about this, but if you're thinking about any small business opportunities, once again, keep this on your radar. Next slide. And then finally, I think this is the last one. We've talked a lot about, you know, the mechanisms, what we have available, but what often is a black box for folks is just understanding the process, not even understanding like, you know, how do I start? How do I talk to someone? You know, when you think of the life cycle of submitting a grant, you know, how do you get from step 1 to step 50? And so we have a resource for that. I'm really proud to say that our hosts have been helping me with this webinar today, Dr. Ulrich and Dr. Matthews. They're the hosts for the Building Up the Nerve podcast. I often say, as weird as it sounds, this is a podcast with federal officials that you will actually enjoy. You'll be entertained, but most importantly, you'll be informed. And you'll have a sense of how the sausage gets made. And that can be so important in terms of really understanding why you're doing what you're doing, creating a timeline to do certain things, knowing who to ask for certain things, who has responsibility for what, and really just overall demystifying the process. You're not born knowing how to go through, you know, and submit an NIH grant. And, you know, even mentors, their best intentions, we have 27 different institutes that do things 27 different ways. And so this is sort of our cheat sheet for you in terms of understanding the NINDS and hopefully improving your success in getting that final application or just understanding how to interact with us. We don't create these programs just to create these programs. We create them because we want you to succeed, and we also want you in our workforce. And so season 1 did this whole life of the grant, but then season 2 really gives you this boots on the ground perspective from grantees. It's really powerful, and we've tried to make it in a digestible way so you don't have to just read, but you can work out and listen to us, take a walk and listen to us, or however you prefer to listen to us. So you can subscribe for that there. And then in terms of connecting with us, we're very active on Twitter. We try to push out information. We have a listserv. A lot of those mentoring hubs that I described for you, they send us when the applications are live. We then push out that information from the listserv. So, you know, one of the action items after this webinar would be to sign up for the listserv if you haven't already done so. Another way to contact us is just through email. You know, you can contact anyone in the office and we'll do our best to guide you. But if you just want to start with a general email to the diversity training mailbox, that information is there. And then finally, the podcast. Hopefully, we've given you a lot to think about, and we've given you at least information for you to start to figure out how to use these resources and mechanisms that we have for you. And so now we've been answering questions all along, but we'll open it up to even more questions. Just put them in the chat. I guess I'll start out by saying, you know, the theme of, we've told you a lot in terms of timing for the K99s, and I've sort of responded to that in the chat. But once again, that whole thing about don't say no to yourself, there could be reasons why your timeline is not that 4 years or not that 5 years. You know, even we talked a lot about personal reasons why you may want to ask for an extension. But there also could be, you know, research reasons. Like we've had people say, you know, hey, the animal colony was flooded. I lost a year. That's not your fault. We try to be really reasonable, and we would probably grant an extension in that case. So even if you are just missing the cutoff, if there are valid reasons why you can think like, oh, I just lost this time. I wasn't really doing research during this time. Tell us that. If we say no, we say no, you end up where you already were. Or maybe we could say yes, and you now have that opportunity. So once again, reach out to us. Just ask the question.
And Michelle, I thought maybe we could revisit one of our first questions, which asked about, the K99 R00 and how the transition process works. Like, can you take that grant to a different institution than you did your postdoc? And sort of, how do you get the R00 phase?
Yes, that's a great question. And, I think we're so used to you apply for an award and that's the whole award for that place. The K99 R00 isn't that. And actually the F99 K00 isn't that. These are really, Marguerite highlighted, these are transitional awards. And most people, the majority of people make that transition to a new institution. And so that's where it makes writing the R00, you have to really be thoughtful because you'll be writing it about a place that doesn't really exist yet for you, right? You haven't gone and you haven't applied perhaps for, or you really shouldn't, right? That's the whole point of the award for the next faculty position. And so these are going to be more broader vision statements and plans focused on the research and, and what you are intellectually going to own from the postdoc is the most important part. But in that R00, that'll be administratively reviewed. So, you'll put something in the application, the K99 R00 that you submit to us, but it won't be totally committed, right? It'll then come back in as an administrative application if you receive the award, and then internally NIH will review it. And a big part of that will be institutional commitment. Is the new institution or new department, if you do end up staying, giving you the startup, the percent effort, all of those things that you need to be successful as a new faculty person. And so that is how it really looks. But I don't, I keep saying most because I don't want to say there's not an example or a justification for why someone may stay at the institution that they're at. But with that, it's usually a higher burden of proof. The NIH staff are going to want to see that they're offering you the same competitive package they would if someone else from the outside was coming in to compete.
Okay, so we have another question about if you're a clinician, can you hold a faculty position during the K99 phase? And this is specifically about the Mosaic. But I do think you can have a clinical faculty position, right?
It depends on the attributes of it. So universities, institutions are really weird about what they call certain things, instructor, faculty with the quotes on it. It is really clear in the FOA what is eligible, what is not eligible, and what is defined as a postdoc and what is defined as not a postdoc. And so the, sort of the overarching thing is that you must be in a postdoctoral training role for you to receive the K99. And certainly there can be nuances to that in terms of clinical duties and what they would say, but I would say reach out to us so we can understand the nuances. It's not a quick, 2-minute answer, or not even 2
minutes. Yeah, and I just pasted the actual language from the FOA into the chat so you can see.
Mm-hmm.
And it says may, may be eligible.
Yeah.
And different institutes will have their priorities about this. So NINDS may have a different response to that than say, NIDA that may also support the Mosaic. So that's why it's always important to talk with a program officer, because it's not just about the research, right? It's also about you, the person, and what your goals are. And don't feel the need to try to fit into the box because it sounds really good to get a K99. Like, yes, of course, there are great reasons to have it on your resume, but it's not going to get you to where you want to be, or it doesn't fit into what you're actually trying to do with your career. It is certainly not worth trying to mold things that way just for the sake of saying you have it. There are plenty of other opportunities, clinical specific types of awards. NINDS very much values clinical researchers. So there are other opportunities for you.
Yeah, great point.
Definitely.
Another question, this will probably be our last question because we're over time. What do you recommend for determining the best institute to apply for? So this question asker is asking, thinks that her project's a fit for NINDS, but it could also fit at a different institute.
Yeah, I think you just send the specific aims and we, internally, because although I really did my pom-poms for reporter isn't perfect. So you want to just send it and we'll, if you want to send it to us, you want to start with us as an institute, we can ask. And our program officers are pretty good about talking about when it's borderline and sharing that information with the applicant to say, it's really up to you, right? It's equally, sometimes it's a flip a coin in certain research areas. And so they'll say that to you.
And I've had many program officers say to me, my colleague, and a very specific colleague over at NIGMS also has a portfolio similar to this. They should also talk to them because sometimes institutes do fight over who they want in their portfolio, depending on what the circumstances are. And it does not hurt to reach out to multiple. You can reach out to 2 program officers at the same time and say, hey, I would like to talk about my plan to submit blank application. Here's my specific aims. Would this be an appropriate fit? And sometimes they'll say, it sounds like it because it has this keyword in it, but it is not at all my portfolio. That's also one of the downsides of reporter. It really is keywords and not the context of the research. But again, if you don't hear from them, we're happy to be the conduit and make sure we get you to the right person. But you're also welcome to do that on your own.
Okay, so that's all that we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining us. And the recording will be available on our website in a couple of weeks, and we'll also post the slides. But please email us, subscribe to the listserv, reach out. We're happy to answer your questions at any time, really.
Yeah, shoot your shot too. That's the message. And contact us. Take care.